Good afternoon and bienvenidos to this session, Climate Action Through Education. It is a real pleasure to welcome you to the Pabellón de España to reflect on how education, participation and creativity can guide us through meaningful climate action. Acciones climáticas con un propósito. Education is not just about knowledge, it is a life that connects community, inspire action, and help us care for our planet. A perfect example of this is IDAFE project in the Canary Island, que conoceremos más adelante. First, let's hear from Ángel Pérez, Head of International Affairs Climate Action at the Spanish Youth Council, CGE. Ángel, adelante.
Hello, sí. Hello, Damaris, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for convening this panel session, and also pretty grateful also to be sharing this panel with such wonderful speakers. I'm Ángel. I'm now Head of International Affairs and Climate Action at the Spanish Youth Council. And we are a platform that represents more than 80 youth organizations in Spain and other regional youth councils, such as the Regional Youth Council in the Canary Islands, responsible of representing youth and youth organizations before national governments and also institutions and stakeholders at the international level. The title of this session, The Right to Change the Future, is powerful, but from our perspective, this might seem sometimes too theoretical for millions of young people that don't have the tools or maybe the platforms or the political power to exercise their rights. We want to congratulate everyone behind this initiative and this project of IDAFE project and guidance on climate change in the Canary Islands, and I think on behalf of the Youth Council it's nice to acknowledge that this is the kind of action-oriented initiative that we need to see in every educational center or public schools. These activities or initiatives connect, as Damaris was already saying, creativity and community, which is vital of developing the tools of the younger generations. However, our goal is also to empower a whole generation of climate guardians, and this is also done outside the walls of schools. The ecological conscience of the Spanish youth is not forged only in classrooms or educational centers, which play a vital role in connecting communities, fostering self-expression and curiosity, and this concept of active participation, it is also shaped in the spaces for non-formal education and validated through meaningful youth participation outside the classrooms. So I think I'm just going to highlight 3 key points that define our perspective on this topic. First, non-formal education is essential or is our essential training ground for climate action. This is where we move theory to practice. In youth organizations, in scout groups, in environmental national non-governmental youth organizations, there are many ways to get involved and to build democratic participation from the early stages. We don't just read about climate crisis, we inspire it and we also transform it. We organize reforestation campaigns, we launch workshops and training events, capacity buildings, and on climate justice, and we provide also peer-to-peer education in our communities. These spaces are crucial laboratories for active citizenship, and they build the resilience and collective spirit that a textbook cannot alone provide. For climate education to be truly effective on behalf of the Spanish Youth Council, we see that it needs to be a continuous thread that weaves together formal, non-formal, and informal learning throughout our lives. Second, also to highlight the demand for an advisory opinion on the International Court of Justice on climate change and the rights of future generations, which is also something that is going to be tackled in today's panel, is our landmark and our tool to fight for climate justice. This initiative, led by Vanuatu and supported by a global youth movement, is not just a legal technicality. is the institutionalization of our most fundamental demand, that the rights of those who are not yet born must be protected today. This advisory opinion has established that states have legal obligations to protect the climate system for present and future generations. For civil society and young peoples, as we were already mentioning, this is a very powerful tool that provides a legal and ethical framework to our advocacy efforts. This advisory opinion tells governments that their climate inaction is not just a policy failure, but a potential violation of intergenerational and human rights. We are closely following this process and demanding that these findings are also applied at the national and in domestic courts. And third, also very important to highlight the agenda of action for climate empowerment, which is embedded here at COP30 and the UNFCCC processes. And the sixth element of the ACE agenda in education, training, public awareness, public participation, public access to information, and international cooperation are the blueprint for what we need. We also see as a gap between the agreement on paper and the implementation on the ground, and this is why these kind of initiatives are so important to build capacity on how younger generations can shift advocacy on the future on climate action. So just from my side, in conclusion, I think our message is very clear. To create climate guardians and to shape the global agenda, as Damaris was already mentioning, we need an ecosystem that provides formal education with the scientific foundation and curricula that helps young learners to learn about climate empowerment. Non-formal education, which are these laboratories of active participation to gain the practical skills and to gain the civic spirit. The Action for Climate Empowerment agenda implemented with ambition, that ensuring that youth participation is meaningful and not just tokenistic. And one thing at the end, the framework of intergenerational justice based on the ruling of the advisory or the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice.
Thank you, Angel. Gracias for showing that youth are not only the leader of tomorrow, but the guardian of today, guiding us toward a sustainable future. Next, we have Harry Bardaner, the University of Adelaide in Australia. Harry, could you share how education can strengthen climate resilience and inspire communities to act?
Check. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad. My name is Harry Wardana. I'm from University of Adelaide, so based in Adelaide, Australia. So potentially the host of the next COP. So I might be seeing you again next year. In the university context, we have a lot of work intersection between climate, trade, and energy transition. I just want to highlight a particular project, what we have in Adelaide. So we have geoenergy collaboration, where we built geomodeling facility that can have access to the school kids. So normally this facility is only accessible for PhD students or researchers, but we make the smaller model, just the size of an iPad, to replicate what can happen in the geological storage of hydrogen. So the school kids can access this. But obviously this is a very advanced technology, and in advanced country like Australia. So I'm probably gonna change a little bit an example from Indonesia, so where I'm from. So in Indonesia, we have a lot of islands, so probably have some connection relevance to Canary Islands. Indonesia has 17,000 islands. So, and of 17,000 islands, we have at least 500 languages. So the challenge to actually educate the children, so not only of the technical part of it, but also the cultural context of it. So one project that we have Australian universities have collaboration. In Indonesia, for example, is to build or to collaborate in the adaptation work. So adaptation work in Indonesia, for example, to build seawall. So I think in Spanish is Malecon, yeah, something like that, yeah. Yeah, imagine like 17,000 islands is a very long coastline, right? So the impact of the intensified tidal waves is very strong in Indonesia. So imagine in the small islands in northern part of Indonesia, this is very rural areas. They don't have much access to technology. So what we need in the adaptation work is not only building the infrastructure, but also the maintenance of it, the care work. Right? So the care work, unfortunately, it cannot be just done by the public service. So the care work in small islands needs to be a hybrid governance. So this is maybe there is some maybe relevance or connection with Canary Islands, like because it's small communities, small scale seawall, so it's not like a massive seawall like in Netherlands or something like that. This is in a small community. That means the governance of that facility is also hybrid. What does it mean? It's a combination between the local officials, the council, local councils, and village leaders, right? And also communities in general. So what does it mean in terms of the financing of it? So most of it is actually voluntary work. So the parents actually, some of the local leaders, it's actually unpaid work. So with this, it needs some conceptual work, conceptual framing for this to happen. So the key concept that we want to introduce is the relational justice in adaptation. So because it requires this collaboration between many elements of the community. So now, where children coming in this picture, right? So children, what is the damage, what is the impacts for children? So the obvious impacts is obviously the physical impacts, so floods, the flooded roads, and then damaged clinics, damaged hospitals, right, for damaged markets for kids. But not only that, it's also the lost time of interacting with parents, right? So this is not really much being explored, but the lost time is why, because the parents need to do the paid work, unpaid work for the care, and adaptation work. So and what does it mean for this kind of projects? This kind of projects can bring children into real action in the climate adaptations. So when they observe right away what is the seawall and how they bring it to community, it can be more meaningful to them. So one of the projects in done by Australian universities is actually engaging the children to make, like, for example, paintings about the seawalls, right? So seawall is one example because of our profile of archipelago country, but not only that. For example, we have also mangroves, right? We also have adaptation from the palm oil plantations. So these kind of projects need to involve community involvements, the village leaders and so on, to maintain the relational justice in adaptation. So so I guess in terms of like the key perspective or key messages that we want to share, it's very important to connect with the education for the future, to linking education and opportunities for the future, is to protect learning time. So a lot of this adaptation work is unpaid. So it needs to be protected. So it cannot only be depending on the finance. It needs to be, well, I guess the same spirit of the Muchirao in COP30. And the second one is make the education place-based. So it needs to be bring the education actually closer to the adaptation work. So for example, we want to actually get the children more understanding with the actual adaptation work, such as building the mangroves, protecting the mangroves or protecting the seawall. We need to actually bring the education, the immersion to the actual place. The last one is, this is a bit probably challenging, but include children in the decision making as well. So a lot of interactions with, get their opinions, get their engagement, not only in the classroom, but also like a very adjusted framework of like a mini town hall for children, for kids, and that's what they're doing in Indonesia, for example. So I guess to close my comments is, it's important to have the experience, like for example in Australia, where it needs to be more community driven, and it's actually unpaid. Many of them is actually not a paid work, but it needs to be voluntary. Yeah. I think I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, Harry. Thank you. Muchas gracias for reminding us that learning is a light that guides action, and that knowledge and policies must work hand in hand. Now, Sumeira and Adam, who works to put los derechos de la infancia at the heart of climate action. Adam and Sumeira, please share how empowering children through education can create lasting change.
Thank you. Does that work? Okay. So I'm still in education, so this is going to be really useful because I'm going to speak about the experiences I've had and how I wish that the climate education I went through was a bit different. And kind of the goal, what I think the goal of most climate education should be. So overall, I'd say that the goal of climate education is to educate a new generation of people who are climate conscious, and then have them become conscious of their impact on the world, and some of them become environmental defenders. As a child, you need to learn about one of the most serious crises facing humanity, and really the only way that can be done is either through someone's support network as a child, so probably their parents or their guardians, or through standard education, or through non-standard education, obviously. They need to learn about the way that it will affect them, and the way that it will affect their fellow man. So I think we need to put a really strong emphasis on teaching children in the global north, especially, how the climate crisis is going to affect children in the global south and people in the global south in general, so that they can truly grasp the effects of climate change, the true effects of climate change, even if they might not feel it to their full extent themselves. I also think a rights-based education around climate change can make children a lot more aware of what other rights they have, and make them a lot more comfortable in standing up for their rights and reporting any concerns they have, which will overall keep children safer. It'll make sure their rights are safeguarded more consistently, and it'll make it easier to make progress within the children's rights space. I think a nature-based education, so introducing children to nature young and keeping them in touch with nature instead of kind of moving education towards a more in-classroom formal way, is really, really important to teach them how to empathize with nature, the natural world, and how to empathize with the world around them when we're talking about the climate crisis, because the climate crisis is so immense and slightly abstract to a child. You need to really drive it home by using nature-based education, nature-based metaphors. I also think there's a certain way you have to teach climate change to children to not give them climate anxiety and kind of make them worry in an unhealthy way. we should worry. It's, you know, it's really bad, but there's a certain way to teach children climate that doesn't involve making them panic and crumbling the whole world around them. So we need to employ techniques which use safe spaces for children to express their concerns about environmental crises, and we need to employ a progressive approach to implementing climate change in the curriculum of early childhood. And finally, I think in terms of later childhood, we can start introducing more foundatory concepts for green jobs, especially green science jobs and engineering jobs, at a slightly younger age, not too young, but to help prepare the future workforce for the economy, which will have a lot more green jobs than we're prepared for. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Smeda Arslan, and I'm together with Adam from Child Rights International Network. And I really want to briefly, without taking too much time, talk about climate education and why that is actually important within the context of the crisis that we're living in. And that is really for two specific reasons. The first one is obviously the disasters that we're facing, floods, droughts, wildfires, you name it. And the other one is disinformation, which is the intentional dissemination of false information related to climate change and climate action, which really causes the scientific evidence that is put out there in the world to be questioned, where it is weakening public support for climate action, where it is undermining democracy and hindering policy implementation and international cooperation, as we're seeing here. It's not only happening in the political world, but it's also happening through lobbying, for example, by the fossil fuel industry that was mentioned. And I'm actually very happy that Angel raised the advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, because the Inter-American Court had put out an advisory opinion as well that really set out specific obligations and differentiated responsibility to protect children in the context of climate change. And that really shows us that not only do we have to protect children physically, but we have to protect them against all of the disinformation that is coming their way. We have technology across the world that is open and free to access. We have disinformation flying around everywhere. So really, states have the duty to protect children from these dangers, from these harms. And that includes, of course, in the context of the natural disasters, to really strengthen the resilience of educational infrastructure at all levels, to ensure continuity of learning and include strategies and mechanisms for responding and dealing with the climate change crisis that we're facing now. Really, it's about empowering children to understand that the world should be better and really giving them agency over the work and the world that they're living in. If you don't teach and give the agency to children, you will really have just participants or people living through the phase of the dangers that we're facing. So I'll just end with a call to action to really include climate education within each conversation, within each agenda point at COP30, and to engage on national and regional level to a not only meaningful participation and inclusion of children, but also the protection of their rights. I'll end it here. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Thank you for showing that protecting our planet is inseparable from protecting our children's future, el futuro de nuestros niños. Y finalmente, and finally, it is an honor to close this first part with Mr. Mariano Hernández Zapata, Environmental Counselor of the Government of the Canary Islands in Spain. Consejero, tienes la palabra.
Thank you so much. Gracias. Hola. Gracias a todos por participar. Ladies and gentlemen, people, educational and environmental sectors. I come from a small corner of the map, yet one endued with remarkable determination, Canary Islands. In oceanic island territories such as ours, risks are heightened by geographical fragmentation, energy dependency, and intense pressure on coastal areas, where our population, infrastructure, and tourism activities are concentrated. This occupation of the coastline, combined with rising sea levels, renders us particularly vulnerable. Yet is precisely this condition that strengthens our ingenuity, our cooperation, and our capacity to adapt. In the Canary Islands, we have come to understand that ecological transition cannot be achieved without an educational transition. For this reason, the government of the Canary Islands, with the support of the European Regional Development Fund, has launched the IDAFE project, an initiative that transforms our schools into a space for climate learning, resilience, and hope. More than 2,500 students and 150 teachers have already taken part in this program, examining playground temperatures, designing bioclimatic solutions, and developing adaptation strategies. These children are quite literally shaping their school into educational beacons in the face of climate change. Today that beacon grows brighter. Through the new MAC IDAFE project, Network of Schools for Climate Action in Macaronesia, this educational model extends to Madeira, the Azores, and Cabo Verde, forming a network of cooperation between archipelagos that share that same ocean, the same risks, and above all, the same hope. Education thus becomes a light that crosses borders, connecting territories and people, linking different archipelagos across an Atlantic Ocean filled with knowledge and solidarity. From the Canary Islands, we light the IDAFE project, the IDAFE beacon, not as a solitary light, but as part of a constellation of educational beacons guiding the course of our planet. Before we continue, I invite you to join me in watching this short video, A Window in the Islands, the classroom and the voice that sustain the beacon of the future.
Yo describiría IDAFE esfuerzo.
Climatología, cambio climático.
Sostenibilidad.
Trabajo en equipo.
Sensibilización.
Soluciones.
Medio ambiente.
Adaptación.
Solución.
Porque hemos trabajado un montón para conseguir esto, hemos ido por las tardes.
Así que me pareció una cosa muy bonita porque estuvimos con nuestros compañeros haciendo el trabajo, compartiendo ideas y todo eso.
Un proyecto muy interesante y bastante particular para mí.
Ha sido un buen trabajo.
La verdad que ha sido una experiencia distinta a todo lo que solemos desarrollar dentro de los centros.
Que nos permite tanto a los docentes como a los alumnos aprender haciendo, aprender mediante la práctica y sobre todo mediante las propuestas, que ellos piensan y elaboran propuestas para nuestro centro.
Una pasada. una pasada.
Primeramente, motivación, concienciación y motivación.
Sin duda, está anclado curricularmente, te facilitan todos los materiales, te facilitan la formación.
Es muy completo y aparte da mucha información, no solamente a nivel general del planeta, sino de Canarias.
La realidad que tenemos es que hay una necesidad urgente y ya estamos en ello.
An amazing and okay, an amazing project. IDAFE has arisen from a profound conviction that environment education must not be confined to a single subject, but should be present in every corner of the classroom, the playground, the school environment, and ultimately the educational community as a whole. When we speak of climate change adaptation, we speak of a cultural shift. We speak of moving from knowing to doing, from doing to committing, and from there to transforming. Each school becomes a living laboratory of climate resilience, where pupils learn by measuring ground temperatures, designing shade gardens, or studying how wind and vegetation can protect their school spaces. These are tangible learning experiences that extend far beyond the classroom walls. In the Canary Islands, we have seen that when pupils take part, when they observe and propose, their perspective on the territory also changes. They discover that the schoolyards can become climate refugees, that the shade of a tree is a lesson in biodiversity, and that scientific knowledge can have a human face and a Canarian voice. Yet the most important aspect is that the transformation does not happen in isolation. Families, teachers, and local communities join this collective effort. The result is not only more sustainable schools, but also more conscientious and united communities. The IDAFE project also represented a different way of understanding public policy. It brings together two departments of the government of the Canary Islands under one shared goal: to line climate action with educational action. From this synergy emerges an alliance that combines scientific rigor, pedagogical innovation, and social awareness. This is not merely about teaching how to recycle or reduce emissions. It is about education generations who understand the complexity of climate change and act from a place of knowledge, empathy, cooperation, and hope. Because in the face of the climate crisis, fear paralysis, but knowledge empowers. With the support of the Interreg MAC program, the Canary Islands take another step forward in their commitment to Europe and to the planet. This project not only contributes to local adaptation, but strengthens the island's position as a pioneering territory in climate education within the European sphere. And when IDAFE crosses the ocean and meets Madeira, the Azores, and Cabo Verde, it does not do so as one who sports a model, but as one who extends a hand. Each archipelago contributes its experience, its culture, its understanding of the sea and the climate. Together, we create an Atlantic network of schools that learn from one another, share challenge, and celebrate solutions. This is the true strength of IDAFE, that it unites territories through education and transforms cooperation into a tool for the common good. Today, looking to the future, we know that the challenges are immense. Extreme temperatures, loss of biodiversity, droughts, rising sea levels, but we also know that we have a generation prepared to face them with intelligence, creativity, and commitment. To choose boys and girls, to choose young people who plant trees, who measures playground temperatures, or imagine cooler and more sustainable schools. We owe more than gratitude, we owe them policies that support their aspirations, resources that strengthen their learning, and adult society that races to meet them. IDAFE is not a temporary project. It is a seed with a long journey ahead. A seed that germinates in a school, grows within the community, and blossoms in international cooperation. That is why, when we say that from the Canary Islands we light the IDAFE beacon, we also speak of kindling awareness, sparking curiosity, and igniting hope. That beacon does not seek to illuminate a path already drowned, but to inspire others to create their own. And every school, every teacher, every pupil who take part become part of that constellation within our collective course towards a fairer, more livable, and more human planet. Let us continue building that network of lives that will not fade. A network where science and education work hand in hand, where action and emotion go together, and where each island, each school, each girl, and each boy knows that their voice matters. For the future, ladies and gentlemen, is not inherited, it is built. And today, from this Atlantic archipelago, we are building it through the strength of education and the clarity of a beacon that never ceases to shine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mariano. Thank you, Mariano. And gracias a todos nuestros panelistas. Your word? Oops. Now it's okay. Okay. Thank you, Mariano. Your words and the words of our panelists remind us that education is the bridge, el puente, connecting generation and territories, empowering us to be true climate guardians, guardianes del clima. And now it's time for all of us, together, to become part of this life. This activity is called Luces que Guían, Lights that Guide. It is a symbolic and participatory moment to celebrate the connection between territories through education and climate action. Since we have a limit to the time today, we'll do this activity quickly and efficiently, so that everyone who wants to can share their light in that place, in the IDAFE project, IDAFE in Spanish, IDAFE in English, like Mariano says, to contribute to our collective lighthouse. There, you can see the IDAFE lighthouse, a symbol of orientation, knowledge, and hope. Its light is made up of 8 rays, one for each island of the Canary archipelago. And today, those rays will also represent your territories, your stories, and your commitments. Cada persona aquí representa una luz, una historia que inspira, un territorio que actúa, una palabra que ilumina, como ha dicho el consejero. So, we invite you to take one of the rays of light and think for a few seconds. What project or initiative in your community gives you hope? What words represent your commitment to change? It can be hope, cooperation, energy, education, water, biodiversity, future. Okay? When you are ready, please raise your hand and shake your word. And place your rays of light on the lighthouse in each of one of them. Let's. Are you ready? Ready? Okay? Let's go. Come on. Which one is this? Juan Carlos? Which is your word? Juan Carlos? I can see. Collaboration. Okay. Collaboration is the first one. The second? Let's go. You have to put the word in the Aidafe lighthouse. We have 8 because we have 8 islands in the Canary Islands. So the first one is collaborate. You have to put one word. Do you have one? No? This is the second. Elena, do you have one? Are you ready? It's okay? Let's go. Okay. Which say the second, Elena? I can see which say. Collective action, okay. The next? Let's go, let's go. I can hear. They are putting a lot of different words in the lighthouse. Government and action, okay. Finish. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is the last. Okay, so I think this is all. Thank you. So, as we can see, the lighthouse is now full of light, full of meaning. Each of these rides represents a territory, a person, a commitment. Lo que hoy encendemos aquí no es solo un faro simbólico, es la prueba de que cuando compartimos, cooperamos y aprendemos, la luz se multiplica. So, as we bring this moment to a close, let's take this message with us. Education is the light that never goes out. Que nuestras luces sigan encendidas y que desde cada escuela, cada territorio, sigamos guiando el camino del cambio con respeto, creatividad y corazón. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos. Let's keep our light shining together.